Now we're here with Rea Carey, who is the Deputy Executive Director of the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force here in Washington and in New York and in Massachusetts.
In Minneapolis, Los Angeles, and Miami.
Wow, a lot of growth. So first I'd like to talk to you about the task force role in bringing a new trans-inclusive bill into the Employment Non-Discrimination Act battle that's going to go on in the House.
Well, our fight for non-discrimination has in fact been going on for 34 years since our staff, then called the National Gay Task Force actually, worked with Representatives Koch and Abzug to introduce the first sweeping non-discrimination bill. And since then, as you know, there's been a lot of back and forth and ebbs and flows, but finally, 8 years ago, we really pushed that ENDA, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, be trans-inclusive, and in fact insisted that if it weren't, the task force, the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, would not be able to support it because we want to ensure that all members of our community are covered.
And you were, if I'm correct, one of the first national organizations to call for trans inclusion?
That is correct, we were. And we're proud to work with a strong coalition that now is fully behind transgender inclusive legislation. Coalition that includes both LGBT organizations and non-LGBT organizations.
Do you think that this represents a new level of inclusion for the trans movement within the lesbian, gay, bi, trans movement and a new elevation within that?
Well, I think it's, in terms of what's written into policy, certainly there are newer trends, but certainly transgender members of our community have been working on legislation and for inclusion and for shifts in society for many, many years.
Fair-minded Americans across the country are going to be getting involved in this fight. How is the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force working with folks across the country in the field?
Well, we've actually been working with folks across the country for years now. As I said, we've been involved for 34 years in pushing non-discrimination legislation and 8 years in ensuring that this is transgender inclusive. So we have, over the years, been communicating with our constituents and other fair-minded people across the country to ensure that when this legislation is introduced, as it is in the House, that that anyone who cares about fair-mindedness, who cares about equality, who cares about people being able to work at their jobs without discrimination, without fear of repercussions for having their partner's picture on their desk, can take action. Today, the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force is launching an action center for ENDA. It's up on our website now, which is www.thetaskforce.org. And we invite all people from across the country, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and straight, to take part in this action. You can write your members of Congress, both on the House and the Senate side, and get involved and also learn about the history of this legislation, which, as I said, really did start 34 years ago.
Thank you very much.